we don't think much about shipping goods long distances. Cargo jets, huge ships, superhighways, and millions of trucks and trains make it relatively easy to ship goods around the world.
But think what it must have been like to transport cargo between Asia and Europe 1,000 years ago. In those days, most goods traveled over the Silk Road, an ancient trading route that connected China to the Mediterranean.
In this CNN report, you'll visit Merv in Turkmenistan, the site of a series of ancient cities built around a desert oasis. For much of its long history, Merv was a major stop along the Silk Road.
But its glory days ended when sea travel replaced the Silk Road as a chief way of getting Asian goods to the West. Today, archaeologists are studying the ruins of Merv in an effort to preserve the site's place in history as one of the world's ancient urban centers.
Just a few disintegrating mud brick monuments is practically all that visibly remains of Merv, a city which during the 11th century was one of the world's major capitals on the ancient Silk Route between China and the West. But Merv's prominence changed over the centuries as different tribal groups seized power over it. More recently, a decision by the former Soviet administration to grow cotton in the area backfired, leaving the previously barren land covered in grass. For years, this area remained inaccessible to archaeologists. All that has now changed, and members of an international Merv project now have access to the site, a site which they say is important to understanding the history of the region.
Merv is a very special site, among many things, because of the way it developed. It's a whole series of cities not built one on top of each other, as let's say at Jerusalem, but side by side, so each of them is a sort of time capsule offering you the chance to look at it archaeologically right on the surface. And this, of course, is very exciting. So we can look at different periods and create the history of the city through the millennia.
But while archaeologists hope to continue to examine and preserve Merv for future generations, the monuments, hidden homes and streets below the surface are crumbling in the midst of rising damp. The International Merv Project is hoping that UNESCO will recognize Merv as a World Heritage Site, providing further funding and recognition for the region. But even that may not be enough to halt Merv's return into the sands of time. Sanjay Singh, CNN.
Merv's story is a common one. Throughout history, towns and cities have sprung up along major transportation routes, only to disappear when the routes change. Even in our own time, the fate of many small American towns has been sealed by the path of the interstate highway system.
The next time you take the back roads through a forgotten town of empty buildings, try to imagine how it might have been when, like Merv, it was full of life and commerce.